When it comes to the major cruise lines, there's what I consider to be the big three: Carnival, Royal Caribbean, and NCL. There's a lot of similarities between those three lines, but if I am being honest, then NCL stands out as an outlier from the other two. The cruise line has a lot of things going on that frankly I didn't realize until I had sailed multiple times across different ships, and they could have a big impact on your trip. To help you prepare, I'll share some of what I wish I had known before I cruised Norwegian. If there's one thing that I think anyone should know before sailing NCL, it's just how big of a difference there is between old and new ships on the cruise line. Now overall, Norwegian, they have one of the youngest fleets at sea, but I've sailed older ships like Jade and Sky, and also been on newer ships like Encore and Prima. It's not just the size that's different, although that is a big factor. The new NCL ships, they have a completely different atmosphere and number of things to do. Norwegian Prima, it's like a floating high-end hotel. It's literally the most posh cruise ship that I've ever been on. And then the new ships, they all have tons of features, from more restaurants to little go-kart tracks that make the experience just vastly different. It's a completely different way to sail. So if you've sailed an older ship in the NCL fleet, then I think it's really hard to say that you've had the full NCL experience just yet. So part of that different feel on new ships isn't just because they are newer and bigger. There's been a legit change of strategy for the cruise line that makes the new ships stand out from rivals. The past few years, and especially with the newest Prima class ships, NCL is steering the line from being just another mass market cruise line to something much more upscale. You definitely see it with ships like Bliss, Joy, and Encore. They just seem to be more modern and higher end than not only other NCL ships, but other ships from Carnival and Royal Caribbean. But it is taken to another level completely with Prima and presumably the rest of the ships in that class. The interior design and upscale vibe, it's just on a whole other level. You can see I am not a fancy guy, so I felt a little out of place at first, but don't worry, it's not stuffy, you quickly get used to it. If you're sailing from Miami on NCL, then there's a good chance that you'll have a stop scheduled at Great Stirrup Cay. The private island for NCL, it's fantastic. It's literally right next to Royal Caribbean's Coco Cay, has beautiful beaches and great water and plenty to do, but it is more subdued than the theme park that Coco Cay has become. But what I had to learn the hard way is that the threshold for porting here is much higher. That's because Coco Cay has a dock, while NCL ships anchor offshore and then tender passengers into port. My last trip on NCL, the weather was beautiful, but it was a little breezy on the day that the ship was calling on Great Stirrup Cay. I still thought it was great weather, but then the captain comes on the intercom to announce that it was too windy to tender to port just yet, and we were going to wait it out. So for hours, we hang out just offshore, cruising around. All the time we can literally see the Royal Caribbean ship docked at its island. Eventually, the captain comes on later in the day and says, "Sorry, the wind is still too much. We're skipping to port altogether." And then the ship starts making its way to the next port. What I didn't realize before I sailed Norwegian, unlike most other cruise lines, they don't allow passengers to bring on soda or water when boarding. I'm not talking you can only bring on cans or cartons or a limited amount. They just flat out don't allow you to bring anything, which frankly I think is a bummer. So buy something in port and they will hold it until the end of the trip if you bring it back with you. But if you bring on, say, a 12-pack of Coke or water, then NCL says that you'll have to return it to your vehicle, or if you don't have a car, it will be disposed of. So you were stuck buying drinks on the ship, which the cost can quickly add up. I mentioned the higher end feel that sets NCL apart for me, but there's something else about the cruise line that's different as well, and I had no idea before I sailed. You'd think that the ocean would be a big part of any cruise, but honestly, on many ships, it's not that big of a deal. Sure, you can get views from your balcony or on the pool deck, but that's about it. NCL, they put a much greater emphasis on connecting with the sea. Newer ships, they typically have large outdoor promenades on lower decks, getting you closer to the ocean. All ships, however, seem to have a focus on outdoor spaces when it comes to dining. You might think that's as simple as just putting out some chairs and a few tables, But with the wind and the sun, it takes some real thought to make eating outdoors on a cruise ship actually enjoyable. Other cruise lines now do this a lot more, but NCL seems to have been a trendsetter for a long time in this area. Now, we all want to get on the ship and get the cruise started as soon as we can, but with NCL, I've learned that it's the one cruise line where you really don't want to show up to port early in boarding. On a couple of cruises I've sailed with Norwegian, my flights got in early on embarkation day, leaving me with not enough time to go and do anything other than just head to the port. So I get there right when boarding starts. One time, that meant getting checked in and having to sit in the terminal for 45 minutes in this packed room until the ship opened up for passengers. Another time, I was able to board early, but the room wasn't ready, so I had to wheel my suitcase around with me for an hour and a half as there was nowhere that I could drop it off and check it. For that reason, it's smarter just to board later in the day if you're sailing with NCL. One thing that you need to be prepared for when sailing NCL is extra costs and prices that are typically higher than what you see on other cruise lines. I think at this point, most of us are used to many things costing extra on a cruise ship, but NCL really takes it to another level. Take the drink package. I'll get to the free at sea offer that includes the drink package in a moment, but if you just buy the package on its own, it's $109 per day plus a 20% gratuity. Carnival charges $60 plus gratuity. The daily service charge for the staff is now $20 per person per day on most rooms, about 25% higher than what you see on other lines. Just about all the restaurants outside of the buffet, dining room, and the 124-hour spot are an extra charge. And then things like the go-karts on newer ships are also an extra fee. Now, you can save on those extra charges with NCL's free at sea offer. This can be a fantastic deal, but I think what might be lost on some people is that free seems to have a little different definition with Norwegian. With this offer, you can get a ton of extras like Wi-Fi, specialty dining, and even the drink package included with your cruise. But while they are called free, you actually pay more for the cabin than the bare bones sail away price. So you are getting a deal, but yes, you are also shelling out more money. Definitely do the math before you buy, as it could be well worth it anyway. One other thing that you should know before booking and sailing is that, at least in the US, you still have to pay gratuities on the package prices for specialty dining and the drink package. For the free drink package, you're paying 20% of $109 per day, or about $22 a day. For a couple on a 7-day cruise, that adds up to more than $300 for those free drinks. One thing that is unique with Norwegian is that the cruise line gives some special focus to solo cruisers. I know this is a niche group, but I do a number of solo trips, and on most cruise lines, it can feel like you're getting robbed. You sail alone, but you have to pay as if there were 2 people in the cabin anyway. That just feels wrong to me. But with NCL's newer ships, they have studio cabins available. No doubt, these are the smallest cruise cabins that you've ever seen, but for one person, they're great. There's also usually a small lounge for solo cruisers to meet other people traveling by themselves. But best of all, these rooms avoid the double charge for a regular cabin, allowing you to sail on the cruise line for less than you could otherwise. I appreciate you taking the time to watch, and I hope that you're able to learn something about NCL from my experience, and there's a lot of things that I wish that I knew before I sailed on the cruise line. As always, if you found this video helpful, be sure to like and subscribe. You can always see more on Cruzely.com. Until next time, happy sailing.